Good evening, folks. Welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. This is Al Huey, along with my partner, Robert Eierman. And our special guest for you tonight is a good buddy of ours, Mr. Ron Porter. Thanks for being with us, Ron.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to talk to him about...
Well, some of you may not know, but Mr. Porter is not degreed, but he is a scholar in the Constitution.
Pretty darn good researcher, too.
Extremely good researcher, and also on the law. Mm-hmm. So Ron contacted us and said that he wanted to come in, and I should set this up a little bit more by saying that normally we only deal with topics that are Ridgecrest specific. Tonight we're going to branch out a little bit, and we're going to do a topic which is not Ridgecrest specific, but at the same time it impacts every citizen of Ridgecrest. So we thought it was appropriate, and the topic of discussion this evening is gun control. You can look at that as anti-gun control, pro-gun control, anti-gun, whichever. But we're going to, like I said, branch out and discuss this topic. Let us know what you think. Let the station know what you think, that if you enjoy this kind of thing or not. So
we're going to talk about gun control.
Yes.
Use both hands, right?
That's one way. I really wasn't thinking about it in that way.
Okay.
Ron, how would you like to start this?
Well, first off, to start out is a subject of gun control. Gun owners are all for the proper safety and handling of them. They're not against something that has a protection for other people. What they have a problem with, most of them that I speak with, is that the laws that are being made today do neither. It's like we want to try and control something, and they write a law, but they don't come ask anybody, how can this help? They don't even explain how it can help. They just we want to control something because we think we can. I personally think they have an agenda, which is to make it more difficult for the people to keep and bear arms.
So what you're saying is you feel that gun control is really more people control.
Yes.
I'm a very strong advocate of the Second Amendment, and I go further. I think that it is self-defense, but not in the common context of how people think of self-defense. To me, its primary self-defense is against the government. I know that a lot of people don't think that, but I firmly believe that an armed citizenry is the best protection against a tyrannical government.
Well, if you study your history at all about our country, the founders insisted, well, it wasn't really even the founders, because it was the states that demanded that these amendments be added to the Constitution, which was later agreed upon and voted. But that's where the Second Amendment came from, and the reason being is we would never have this country if at the time of our American Revolution people weren't able to have access to weapons. Some of the very early conflicts, the very first shot heard around the world, had to do with the British going in and trying to acquire the weapons and the gunpowder and all there in Concord. So they saw it that, hey, we can't let this happen with this new government that we're forming. We got to make sure that the people are going to have access to weapons, because the government can go south. We saw it. That's why we formed this new country. And gosh, look what's going on in Oregon. And what happened in Nevada, similar with the ranchers and the government coming in and controlling land, which is another thing we could maybe talk about, that, you know, nowhere in the Constitution is the federal government authorized to own, control, operate, create parks and monuments. Not in the Constitution. They can only come into a state and have property for certain things. Military
Forts,
institutions,
magazines, yes.
magazines, post offices. And even that, they just can't come in and do it. It has to be given to them by permission from the state.
Well, and to move on to a point that you just brought out, which is quite important, is that they felt so strongly about the people keeping the arms, they actually put in the Constitution state militias.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they put that in there is because they didn't want a standing federal army. They didn't want the federal government to have that kind of power. That's why you can only fund the army for 2 years. They were very much concerned about federal power. They're seeking more power. Al mentioned the Bill of Rights. Well, the very interesting part about the Bill of Rights is it was insisted upon by numerous states, but it's really not a Bill of Rights. It's a Bill of Restrictions.
On the government.
On the government.
Right.
The state said, we need to further chain down and bind you.
Mm-hmm.
This week, the president decided that he needs to use executive power to go after some more what he calls gun control. I think it's more people control. I'm going to agree with Robert on that one. But he didn't come to anybody and says, how's this going to help? How are we going to move forward? How's this going to help make people safe? Well, in this particular case, and I'll get back to it in a minute, is, well, if I can save one life. Well, they also use another tactic, and that's the collective tactic, when they try and take away our rights. Our rights come from the Declaration of Independence, inherent rights by the Creator. That's where our rights come from. The Bill of Rights just was written by the founders to say, we're going to make sure you don't touch these very valuable ones.
Right.
So,
we're going to guarantee it.
Right.
And they actually don't come from the Bill of Rights, like you said, though, you alluded to. They come from our Heavenly Father. They're,
right.
You know,
They're natural
rights
that everybody should have. And I heard 10 seconds. Did you hear 10
I
seconds?
heard 10 seconds also.
Okay. We'll be right back after this break. Join us then for more gun control debate. And welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk here on KZGN-TV. And I'm Robert Eierman, along with co-host Al Huey, and our special guest tonight, a citizen scholar on the Constitution and on the law, Mr. Ron Porter. And we're talking about kind of a new subject, new area for us here on Ridgecrest Talk. We're talking about a non-specific Ridgecrest item, but one that actually affects everybody even more than sometimes the things that the city council does, because it goes outside the boundaries of the city and involves everybody else. So,
you know, as you both know, particularly you, Ron, I was impetus in getting a Constitution class here locally for the community for several years, and then former students took it over for a while. There were two classes, the Constitution 101, I guess you call it, or basic course, and then the more advanced course, which is still going on today, I believe. I haven't heard for sure, but and one thing I was amazed at is how people have been
indoctrinated.
Indoctrinated, yeah, that's
Yes.
good. As to the interpretation of the Constitution, and one good example is, you know, where it guarantees us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, a lot of people in that pursuit of happiness think that's, well, we need to make sure that everybody's happy. You know, and that's not what pursuit of happiness meant. It meant that
Basically, well, actually, what it meant is Thomas Jefferson actually put pursuit of property in there initially. The reason he did that was to say so that you're secure in your person, your being, and your family.
Right.
That's happiness because everyone's being taken care of, and that's that.
But even the courts today, you know, we had to talk about how some people misunderstand, but the courts today, that's how we got all these entitlement programs kind of on the back of pursuit of happiness, taking care of people, you know. That was not the job of the federal government. I can remember the story, and you guys probably do too, of the former patriot and Congressman Davy Crockett, when he went back home getting ready to get for re-election, and he had a farmer tell him, "No, I'm not voting for you. You know, you gave money away, and it's not yours to give." And that's an interesting story. If you've never read that, you ought to look that up on Davy Crockett and how this farmer educated Davy Crockett on not giving away the store, you know.
It's kind of like we would like to maybe educate a lot of our current representatives, whether they be.
Well, states are different now. I'm talking about this had to do with the federal government.
Yes, I understand, but I certainly would like to educate some of them also. But
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot that the states do that maybe they shouldn't.
Although we're at the basics of what controls or what we're talking about, I wanted to be more specific about gun control.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. So, what are your thoughts, Ron, relative to what currently was proposed this week by President Obama?
Well, but basically, there's two things that bothered me with that. First off is he's trying to do something around the legislative branch, and he's blaming them. But the most important thing that he did is he went to Loretta Lynch, and they conspired, in my opinion, to decide exactly how far can I push the constitutional limits of this. Well, Loretta Lynch's job as Attorney General is to enforce the law and the Constitution, and I think it was totally inappropriate for her to do that. But I think the real intent is, with his gun control and the people that decide we just shouldn't have them, is they know that we're guaranteed that right, but they want that right to be as difficult as possible for us to exercise.
Doesn't the Second Amendment say something about shall not infringe?
Yeah, that's what it says.
I thought I remembered that. But
yes, you do remember well.
But to me, infringing is if you tax me $50 or $100 to buy this gun. And today, I haven't looked at it. I'd have to ask someone what the current is. But by the time I pay for my background check and the schooling that I have to have, and believe me, I'm very much in gun safety. I don't mind the schooling, but if the society as a whole wants you to have these things, then society as a whole ought to pay for them.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's easy when I say, well, I really don't like the fact that Robert drives an SUV, so I'm going to tax him out of it.
Okay.
And that's what they can do. They can tax you out of the opportunity. In fact, the first federal law, basically, that they wrote in this nation, they knew they couldn't say, you can't have this gun, which actually was a Thompson machine gun at the time.
Right.
That they were after. Well, we know we can't outlaw this gun, so what we're going to do is we're going to tax it out of existence. They added a $200 tax on it.
Which the law-abiding citizen at that time couldn't afford, but the criminals had no problem affording that.
That's true, but more than that is that at that time, that particular firearm only cost $45.
So a 400% tax.
And to make it even worse is the form that you had to fill out so that you could pay your $200 and keep it, they strangely weren't available.
An Obama
So, I mean, it's
healthcare thing.
We're going to tax you out of it. The idea is you have to understand is they know they can't, it's like a piece of granite. They know they can't take it all at once. But they're going to chip all the way around it, keep chipping little pieces away. Until pretty soon they have what they want.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is what you feel they want is not for there to be guns in the hands of citizens.
Right. If they were truly concerned about safety, they would come and say, okay, gun owners, we need to find an answer for this problem. Have you noticed they never asked that question?
Well, I could tell them what the answer is. Whether they would accomplish it or not, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
But-
exactly.
I'll get to that after we come back from our next break, because we're upon another break here. Have to pay the bills here. Join us when we come back with our guest, Ron Porter, and we're going to be talking about guns and the Constitution and your rights to arm yourself. Join us when we come back. Welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk. Al Huey here, along with partner Robert Eierman, and our guest, Mr. Ron Porter, talking about guns, gun safety, gun legislation, executive orders, all kinds of things
gun
related
control.
to gun control. And one thing I had brought up during the break on this executive order, the president's, some of the things he's asking for, 230 more background investigators by the, I think the Bureau, Federal Bureau of Investigation, I think who does it, and research into safer guns, and some other things. But all this costs money, and I'm wondering, where does the president get this money? Because he doesn't control the purse strings. Congress controls the purse strings, I thought, but again, you know, I only read the Constitution briefly. So
Yeah, well, with the current Congress, whatever he wants, they'll give him money for it. And didn't you understand there's a limitless supply of money? They
No,
just
I
print
didn't.
some more. So,
Oh, okay.
Minor point.
Well, and actually, you have a very strong point. Is number one is the background check system's already in place. In fact, they find many flaws with it when you actually dig into it.
Yeah, you mean
But-
like the fact that states only contribute about 80% of the information that they have towards the background checks? That kind of thing?
Well, that's part
that
of
they
it.
aren't complete?
That's part of it, but like I said, it's mostly it's just a computer check that they do.
Right.
It's done very quickly, and if the information's not put in there properly, or if a judge doesn't put it in there properly, but one of the things that he really wants that extra money for, in my opinion, isn't really to do the background checks. He wants this when, and Al brought it up, is that it talks about, I want these new guns, safer guns. Well, what they're biometric guns is what he's talking about.
Yes.
Things that says, okay, this gun has to be, it can only be operated by Al or by Robert, which is actually going to put more people's lives in danger in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Because if Robert and his wife were home and she grabs Robert's gun, she's out of luck.
That's right.
But the more important thing with what he's saying is that if it protects one life, then it's worth it. No matter how many restrictions, no matter how much I put on your back and Al's back and the people's back, if I can save one life, well, that's a very dangerous thought. But if he's just talking about saving lives, that's a question if he can. If I say, well, let's get rid of the 14th Amendment and the police can search you at any time on the street, for whatever reason they choose,
Right.
I guarantee you I can save lives.
I guarantee you that too.
But our liberty and our freedom's going to be gone. If the fire department can come in and check your smoke alarms anytime they want, I guarantee you're going to save lives.
Right.
If I put sand in everybody's swimming pool, I guarantee you're going to save lives. But it's not the government's job to go out there and see how they can do these things. It's to protect our liberty and freedom. In fact, it's to protect the individual's liberty and freedom. That's why we're a republic. It's not a collective. It's not what's best for the whole. Our entire government was set up to protect the individual liberty and freedom. The system only works if you set the system up to go protect the individual. Because when you protect the individual, everybody gets protected. Otherwise, you protect classes.
Yes. You're absolutely right. And speaking of protection, let me just go through a list of the most recent mass shootings that have occurred: San Bernardino, Roseburg, Charlotte, Charleston, Newtown, Aurora, Fort Hood, DeKalb, Illinois, Omaha, Nebraska, Blacksburg, Virginia, Littleton, Colorado, Jonesboro, Arkansas. In every one of those cases, the incident occurred in a, quote, gun-free zone. So is the government, in attempting to do good, actually doing bad in that they set up what I'm going to call killing zones? If in any of those instances there would have been concealed carry people, the result, I don't think, could have turned out any worse, and there's a possibility that it could have turned out better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have no disagreement.
And therefore we could have saved at least one life.
Well, I have no disagreement with you, but to make this a little further, is every one of the shootings, the firearm was obtained legally.
Yes, that's another good point.
But the most important part is people that go do this, I really don't give them the credit for having a lot of intelligence. But any intelligence at all, anyone that wants to start a fight, he goes and picks an easy target.
Right.
He doesn't pick a hard target. So at best, that has to be considered a probability of a strong point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
At worst, you're saying he's too dumb to know the difference. But I don't believe that.
I don't believe it either. I mean, you don't hear about many mass shootings in a police station. You don't hear about many mass shootings at a gun show. So they must have some concern for their own safety, or at least accomplishing a lot before they get taken out. So if they knew that they were going to meet resistance, and in every case when they met resistance, they give up, they get killed. So doesn't it make more sense, if we're interested in saving lives, to stop the gun-free zones?
Oh, absolutely. Probably the most outrageous thing that they talk about is assault weapons, which is nothing but a semi-automatic rifle,
right,
with jewelry. That's how I put it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just jewelry.
Dolled up.
Dolled
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Pig on lipstick on a pig,
Yeah.
so to speak.
It's like putting chrome on your car.
Yeah.
Most of it really doesn't offer you a whole lot, but statistically, those kinds of weapons are used in less than 1% of all crime. But yet we bring them up to the highlight at the end.
Right.
And the most interesting part of it is they call them military-style weapons, which they are, a lot of them. But one of the first major cases on the Second Amendment actually identified the fact that the sawed-off shotgun wasn't a military-style weapon to justify their decision. So what are we looking at here? It's the court moves things to fit their personal desire that day.
You know what? We're almost out of time again. Can you stay a little longer and we can continue this discussion, or do you have to go?
Oh, I can stay.
Okay.
So we'll see what we can do. And by the way, actually, I'll get into this more in the next show. We'd like to hear the other side. If there's someone out there that'd like to come in and talk about it, the pro-gun control, anti-gun version, if you're out there and want to come in, contact the station. We'll be back with more Ridgecrest Talk next time.